Hey church family, in Psalm 86, there's a prayer of David, and I want to challenge you to make part of his prayer your prayer. Psalm 86:11 says, "Teach me your way, Lord, that I may rely on your faithfulness. Give me an undivided heart, that I may fear your name." What does it mean to have an undivided heart? It means to live with integrity. If you're serious about becoming a person of integrity, the first step is to admit that you haven't had integrity. It's to admit that you don't always keep your promise. It's to admit that sometimes you gossip. It's to admit that sometimes you slack off at work. It's to admit that sometimes you pretend to be someone you're not. The starting point on the road to integrity is just to admit to God that you haven't had integrity. Too often we make the mistake of thinking that we can segment our lives and that it's possible to live with integrity and harbor sin in one area of life, and that it doesn't affect the other areas. Pastor Rick Warren calls this the Titanic Myth. When the Titanic set sail in 1912, it was declared to be unsinkable because it was constructed using new technology. The ship's hull was divided into 16 watertight compartments. Up to 4 of these compartments could be damaged or even flooded, and still the ship would float. Tragically, the Titanic sank on April 15, 1912, at 2:20 in the morning. 1,513 people lost their lives. At the time, it was thought that 5 of the watertight compartments must have been ruptured in a collision with an iceberg. However, on September 1, 1985, when the wreck of the Titanic was found, lying upright on the ocean floor, there was no sign of that long gash previously thought to have been ripped into the ship's hull. What they discovered, much to their surprise, was that damage to one compartment had affected all the rest. Many people make the Titanic mistake. They think they can divide their lives into different compartments, and that what they do in one will not affect the rest. But the truth is that when it comes to your life, a hole in the boat is a hole in the boat, and eventually it's going to sink you. That little area you thought you had under control will eventually take you down, and it'll affect the people around you, because while sin is personal, it is never private. No one is perfect, and God doesn't expect you to be perfect. He does expect you, however, to have integrity. And the starting point is to own up to your sins, no matter how long your list is. God is more interested in your heart than in your sins. You're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be sinless, but you can sin less. And it begins with a choice to pursue integrity. So let me challenge you to make David's prayer your prayer and ask God to give you an undivided heart.